All right. Good morning. Um, Awesome to have you here. So today for science, I'm going to first introduce the topic to you that we're going to be talking about. We're still working with plants, and so I'm going to introduce a new topic today um, via a video. And then I also will share with you like a quick 5 minutes activity that you and your family can do to kind of make it interactive and make it more hands-on for you. So I'm going to start with a quick review. A couple weeks ago, you guys watched a video on the parts of a plant. And so I want to first review the parts of a plant because the topic that we're going to be talking today is about seeds. And so I want to make sure that we just go over and have a good base to build that knowledge on. So I'm going to first start with the stem. So if you're thinking back to that video, the stem is the structure of the plant. And so I have actually a couple examples here. So here you can sort of see the stems of the plant right there. And the stem is not only the structure of the plant, the thing that holds it up, but it's also the thing that carries water and nutrients from the soil up to the plant itself. I also have here a basil plant. And so a basil plant, here, I think you can sort of see the stems of that. Yeah, they're a little bit smaller, but they still carry all that water and all those nutrients up to the basil plant. The next part of the plant that I would like to talk about is the leaf. And the basil leaf actually is edible, right? We can put it in our food, and some of you may have tried basil, or maybe you've grown a basil plant in your own backyard. And so even though this one is edible, this one is not. But the purpose of the leaf is to collect sunlight, right, for the process of photosynthesis. So because it has so much surface area here and so much area for the light to come and land on, that's what leaves are great for. So they collect the sunlight. The next part of the plant that I would like to quickly talk about is, well, the roots. But the roots are the internal part, right? So I'm not going to uproot this lovely basil plant, but if you did the seed germination activity and you had beans and put them in a jar, you might start to see the roots growing, and they grow inside the soil, right? And so that again also helps to carry the water and all the nutrients from the soil up through the stem and to the plant. So that's the purpose of the root. Then I have a lovely flower. Now, unfortunately, this one is not real, but the flower's purpose is to help to reproduce and make other plants, right? Because there is pollen in the flower. And so, you know, in the summertime, we see bees come along and go from one flower to the next, and they collect pollen, and then they spread it from plant to plant, and that's how the flower is reproduced. Along with that, we have fruit. Now, of course, not all plants have fruit and flower that grows on them, but some of them definitely do. And the fruit's purpose is to protect and to contain the seeds. So if I were to cut the apple open and hold it in half, then you would be able to see like some of the seeds inside, right? So that's the purpose of the apple, is to not only be delicious to eat, but also to protect those seeds inside so that one day the seeds can reproduce and create another plant. All right, so I am going to switch over. I'm going to share my screen with you. So I have a little presentation for you. So just like we talked about, we've just reviewed the parts of a plant, right? We have the flower, we have the leaves, we have the stem, we have the root, and we have the fruit. And I didn't really talk about the bud. The bud is just the premature leaf or flower or what was the other one? Fruit. Did I not mention that one? Um, and so this lovely diagram does not have a fruit on it, but the fruit would also grow from where the flower or the leaf is growing from. And so I wanted to quick review that because we're going to talk about today about seed dispersal. So dispersal is kind of a big word. It's kind of a mouthful. And so what disperse means is actually to spread over a wide area. So if you were to disperse seeds, if you're planting seeds and you were to disperse them, then it would mean to spread out and to spread over a really big area. And so there are three ways for a seed to disperse or to travel. And so I put a picture of a dandelion plant here because I think their seeds are iconic for when you blow on the seeds and on the plant, then their seeds disperse, right? And they get carried away in the wind. All right, so just like I said, just like I mentioned with the dandelion plant, the first way that a seed can disperse is through the wind, right? It gets picked up and carried by the wind. So I included that beautiful dandelion plant because I think a lot of you might be familiar with that kind of plant. You can make a wish with it, right? If you blow on it, you're supposed to make a wish. And if you blow on all those seeds, then they get picked up by the wind. And if it's a windy enough day, they can get carried for quite a while because they're pretty light seeds. Another plant that I put up here was the milkweed seed. And so milkweed, they look a little like the dandelion seeds where they're kind of light and airy. And they also can get picked up by the wind and carried for a very long distance, especially if it's a windy day. So that's how they reproduce, is they get picked up by the wind, they get carried to another location, and if they drop in a nice area where there's enough water and enough nutrients, then they might be able to reproduce another milkweed plant. And then third, I have the maple seed here. And so you may see these in your backyard or around your neighborhood as well. I think we have quite a few of them around here. And these are fun because if you hold them up and then you drop them, they'll spin around and twirl while they get to the ground. And so just like the other two, these can go a pretty far distance if it's windy enough. All right, so moving right along, we have animals. So animals are another way that seeds can get dispersed. I have a picture of a squirrel here with his little nut because squirrels are notorious for hiding nuts, right? They bury them in the ground, and then when it comes time to hibernate, they find them so that they have enough food for the winter. But I mean, the tree's hope is that the squirrel doesn't find all the nuts and that they just leave one buried in the ground so that eventually that nut can grow into another tree. I also put a picture of a bird here, and I know I might have mentioned this in with one class when we first started talking about seeds, is that fruit, right, is a great way for plants to reproduce because fruit is something that's edible. It's something that you can eat. And so when animals eat this, just like this bird here is about to eat this berry, when they take it in and as they're digesting it, they're traveling around and moving. And then eventually the animals do have to poop somewhere, right? And so wherever they are, and when they're about to poop, that's where they leave the seed because the seed doesn't get digested into their system or by their body, it just goes right through them. And so then that's another way that plants hope that they're able to reproduce, right? And then a third way I have is the classic burr. And so if you're walking through the woods, you might find these on your clothes, right? Because they're really sticky and they like to stick to different fabrics, but also different animals. So a deer passing by or a coyote passing by, they might also get burrs on them. And then as they walk, they start to drop off and then grow from wherever they have dropped off. All right, so the third way that a seed can travel is by water. And so if you think about like streams or rivers or lakes, even there are often trees, right, that are by the side of these bodies of water that overhang. And so seeds from that tree, or even plants that are close to the water's edge, can drop into the water and then get carried by it, right? Because water isn't usually just still. Um, Water is moving, and especially if it's a river or a stream, it's constantly moving. And so that's a great way for seeds to get carried from one location to another. So I again put those dandelion seeds up here because they're so light that they can float on the water nicely, and so they can get carried down the stream. I also put willow tree seeds. So these right here are willow tree seeds. And if a willow tree, I don't know if you've ever seen one, but they're really like low hanging branches. And so if one of those is hanging right over the water and seeds can drop into the water and get carried a decent distance, then once they reach land again, maybe they will be able to reproduce and grow another willow tree in a different location. And then lastly, I put the water lily because water lilies actually, they thrive in water, right? That's where they live. And so water lilies actually have seeds as well. And so when a water lily seed drops off, into the water, then it can actually grow from there. And water lilies don't need soil like other plants do because their roots just grow into the water. But I think they're another really cool example of how water can carry a seed and reproduce a plant. All right, now I'm going to show you just a quick fun activity that you can do with your family or your siblings or even by yourself if you would like to. So I will be right back.
All right, so for this activity, this could take you like 5 minutes, or you could go for as long as 15, depending on how long you guys want to try and collect seeds. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna imitate animals, and we're gonna pretend like we have fur and see what kind of seeds stick to us. And the question that I want you to be thinking of during this activity is this helpful for plants when the seeds get stuck to animals, or is this harmful? So, is it helpful or harmful to have seeds stick to animals? And then just think about that while we're going through our activity. So, all that you need for this activity is either some tape. I'm gonna try and use tape because my socks are not working very well, but you can also use just a pair of wool socks. And because of the time of the season, there's not a ton of new seeds on the ground, but you should be able to find some because there's not snow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a little circle with my duct tape like this on both fingers, both hands, and I'm going to walk them across the ground just like an animal would and see what kind of seeds I collect, and then I'll show you. So once you have your duct tape on your fingers, then you can walk around the ground like an animal and see what you collect with your fur. Ooh. Okay, so I've got a couple seeds here. Here is the maple seed that I was talking about before. This is obviously a kind of a dead one. It's not as new as the other ones were in the picture, but this is the maple leaf seed. So I found another one on the ground. And here, I think this is an acorn because it looks like it still has the nut inside of it. So if you don't have any duct tape or socks to use at home, you could also just look for these seeds when you're out on your daily walk with your family as well. So it's a great activity. Tell me what you find and answer the question as well.